You're live, Chairman.
Good evening and welcome to North West Planning Committee meeting on Wednesday 11th of January 2023. My name is Councillor John Keys and I am Chairman for this meeting. Members, we are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting you are giving your consent to be recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Please note that YouTube live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of the microphones. Therefore, can I ask you, when invited to speak, remember to turn on your microphone and turn off when finished. Please reference page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers and keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. Apologies for absence. May I have the apologies for absence, please, Berna?
Thank you, Chairman. We've received apologies for absence from Councillors Morley, Stevens and Thompson.
Thank you. Right, item 3. It is recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on the 30th of November 2023, found on pages 7 to 10, are approved as a true, accurate record. 23, yes, it should be. Apologies, it should be 30th of November 2022. We're a bit ahead of ourselves here. Found on pages 7 to 10 are approved as a true and accurate record. I so move. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thank you. Vote on Councillor Simon. Declarations of interest. To disclose an existence and nature of a disciplinary pecuniary interest, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests relating to items of business on the agenda having regard to paragraph 9 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct for members. Members are reminded that they are also required to disclose any such interests as soon as they become aware, should the need arise through the meeting. Do I have any disclosure of interests? Councillor Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I just must point out that I am a frequent patron of the applicant for the second, Mr. Thomas Gregan's.
Thank you very much.
Keeps you well finded in pickled onions.
Thank you very much, Councillor Morning. Anybody else? I should also declare an interest that I have bought stuff off of Tom's farm shop over the years. So yeah, but it's a non-pecuniary interest. Okay, anything else? Right, Lawns, if required, take result. Lawns Farm, sorry, bear with me, apologies for this. Application 22/0049 full, land rear of Hawthorns, Braxted Road, Great Braxted. We move agenda to item 5, found on pages 11 to 22. Mrs. Lisa Greenwood will present the report.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Can I just check? Hello. Can I check you can see the presentation?
Yes. Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So this is land rear of Hawthorns, Braxted Park Road. The site is located to the south of Braxted Park Road, outside of a defined settlement boundary. The site measures approximately 4,350 square metres in area. Access to the site is via an existing access to Braxted Road. One dwelling, Hawthorns, is located to the east, and Broadfield Fruit Farm is located to the west. The site is surrounded on all sides by open countryside, and the character of the site is rural. Planning permission is sought for the erection of 12 stables, including tack and hay store, incorporating permissive farm rides to connect into the highway bridle network. The stables measure 38.7 metres wide, 7 metres deep, and 3.94 metres in height. The planning statement confirms that 6 of the stables will be for a hobby use and 6 of the stables will be for a commercial use, with the potential to offer livery riding lessons and local guided trails or treks. It's acknowledged that upon validating the application, the local authority sought confirmation as to the use of the stables, and this is reflected in a change in the description of development, and this was agreed with the applicant. Paragraph 5.1 of the report sets out the principle of development. The current use of the site is agricultural, and this has been confirmed at a recent appeal and set out in section 5.1.4. The proposal, however, seeks to introduce a park commercial use, therefore changing the use of the site. This is considered to extend rural diversification as suggested in the planning statement submitted to support the proposal. To fall within the definition of agriculture, the proposal would have to keep the horses in the same way as cattle, sheep or pigs, i.e. to work on the land. Insufficient information has been submitted to support this change. There is no real explanation of the link or that it's an ancillary function, and there is no explanation as to the justifiable or functional need for the business in this location. In addition, consideration has also been given to the welfare of the horses and whether the proposed facilities and land would be compliant with DEFRA's code of practice. The code states that as a general rule, each horse requires approximately 0.5 to 1 hectare of grazing land of suitable quality if no supplementary feeding is provided. The planning statement submitted to support the proposal states that there is the potential for the horses to graze on land outside of the red line boundary, and this measures approximately 28 acres. However, this is outside of the red line boundary for the site. This land therefore cannot be considered as a reliable and long-term source of grazing land for the horses, as this parcel of land could be sold separately by the owner at a later date or the arrangement revoked. There is no reasonable way for the local planning authority to ensure that this land remains linked to the stables. The grazing land must therefore be within the red line boundary for the development site to be considered acceptable. I'll briefly show you some photographs, but in summary, incorrect and insufficient information has been submitted to support the proposal. The applicant is required to apply for a change of use and to submit robust evidence to justify this change. They would need to include things such as hours of business, actual number of employees, etc. Also, full details to ensure the health and welfare of the horses is required and a long-term management plan. The proposal has been found to be contrary to policies S1, S8, E4 and E5 of the local development plan, and it's recommended by officers that planning permission is refused.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Much appreciated. Right, we have a public participant for this planning application. In line with the public participation scheme, I now invite Mrs. Alex Quinn, the agent, to read out her submission. So if you'd like to move up to one of there, press the red light. And as soon as you start the timer, are we ready with the timer, Berna?
Yes, the timer is up.
The timer is, oh right, yes it is, thank you. Right.
Thank you, Chairman. The applicants are keen horsemen and would like stables near Hawthorns for hobby use and to offer livery and short pony treks and instruction. It is low-key and modest in terms of intensity, scale, design, appropriate to the rural character. The stables have policy support from Malden's policy E4 on rural diversification and E5 tourism. Policies N1 and N3 are also supported through providing access to a rural activity and natural assets within the district. These echo the economic, social and environmental objectives of the NPPF. The stables are ideally placed to provide good access to farm rides and local bridleways, providing choice and diversity for the budding equestrian. No objections are raised on grounds of design, character of the building, residential amenity, flood risk, biodiversity or trees, with no objections from the public, the parish council, highways, ecology or environmental health. On the suggested reasons for refusal, the description of development was proposed by the original case officer and the red and blue lines were agreed also. The grazing of horses does not require planning permission, but in any event, a condition could tie a permission to the 28-acre field to the rear in the applicant's ownership, or the red line could be revised to include the land. Either way, there is considerable grazing land available within the applicant's control for the stabled horses. On the second reason for refusal, the requirement for further information on the demand for horse riding as a tourist attraction and on horse welfare seems overly prescriptive, especially when the applicants own around 50 horses between them and are well versed in equine care. John Purdy also has commercial experience of stable ownership with livery and lessons. I commend this proposal to you and hope that you feel able to support it this evening. Thank you.
Well done. Spot on your time there. Very well practiced. Right, members, I now invite you to any questions and comments you have on the report, please. Councillor Morgan, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm obviously very familiar with this location. It's extremely close to where I live. And I recall when the original building went up some years back, and I don't think I've any confidence to say that some eyebrows were raised that the planning application for that was passed, but passed it was. And so I think that having allowed a building of that nature to go up, a sort of prestige dwelling in that part of the world, and then to turn around and say that something which is commensurate with the use of that, Bailey stables, is to be refused, is quite literally closing the stable door after the horse has bolted. And I think that this sort of application is fully commensurate with the building as it currently is. It's offering a service. I mean, there used to be trail rides in the area, I noticed before, which that sadly fell away, which I think is well required in terms of tourism and other local uses. Also, I'm slightly concerned that there's been sort of a suggestion that information has not been or incorrectly provided. It would appear that, in fact, the planning officer actually provided the wording to the applicant. And also, I'm a little concerned about this idea that there is need to be a change of use here. As far as I'm aware, agistment or the grazing of horses is an agricultural use. So I'm not quite sure why there is a requirement for them to make an application for a change of use. And finally, I'm not aware of it, perhaps the planning officer can put me right here, is when did welfare of horses become a planning consideration? I mean, I'm sure it's something for the RSPCA to consider, but when is it a planning matter? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else who's right? Councillor, Mrs. White.
All right, if I come in, if the land is only going to be used for horses, then technically there should be a change of use. But if it's going to be grazed with sheep and cattle, you don't. And generally, field don't have change of use. It's generally only the buildings that you need the change of use on. And I will say that I'm a qualified riding instructor. I was a reserve national champion at a big national championships in 2019. I teach regularly at Pony Club, and I've also trained riders who are shortlisted for Great Britain teams this year. Hopefully they'll be selected. So I don't know what I'm talking about. So I have no problem with the field not being included. For me, it's all the buildings. The buildings, the perfect size for horses, it makes sense. It's quite often to have half and half with privately owned horses and liveries. We personally don't have liveries, but that's choice. It's on 28 acres. The minimum recommended BHS is 1 acre per horse, and I am British Horse Society qualified, and this has got over 2 acres per horse, which is perfectly adequate. And I think the design and layout works really well with horses, and it looks like it's a really good design. But what I would say is I disagree with the officer's findings on some of them. I think this does comply with policy for agricultural and also rural diversification. It isn't just diversification. And because under policy 4 on page 76, it says the function of the proposed building stroke activity is directly linked and ancillary to the existing use. And that number 3, the building and activity could not reasonably be located in existing towns, villages or allocated employment areas. Well, obviously it wouldn't. And horses are very labour intensive, so there will be a uptick in labour. And the other point I had is that there is plenty of land there. So actually, I'd like to propose a contrary view that we approve this application, because for me it is in line with policy E4, and it will encourage economic growth in a rural area because it cannot be sited in a town or village or on an industrial site because it's rural by nature. So I don't know if I'll have a seconder for that later on.
I've got a seconder. Councillor Morgan, thank you very much. Anybody else? Councillor Siddle, that's your ward, the same as mine. I've called it in. I guess.
Yeah, so I'd like to seek clarification on 5.1.4, which talks about the Broadfield Fruit Farm. And I know that eventually on appeal, a ban was passed on that particular site. And it was passed because the applicant was saying that he had proved that he'd got agricultural land to use for that site. So are we now saying that the agricultural land, and whether officers can clarify this for us, is no longer going to be agricultural land and is now going to be used for horses? So surely, yeah, we have got a change of use in terms of that, because the previous things that we has gone through eventually on this site were for agriculture and were put through as it was a farm.
So I'm
Mr.
not
Johnson?
sure if I've fully followed you there. Sorry about that, Councillor. Sorry, could you just repeat?
Yeah, so on 5.1.4, okay, so the Broadfield Fruit Farm, which went through on appeal, said, I'm satisfied that the site forms part of agricultural holding and the appellant is in a farming business. So previously the applicant has applied for a building on this land because it's for a farming business. Now that seems to be changing, and therefore surely there should be a change of use, because previous planning permission was passed on it being agricultural land.
I'm happy to respond if you.
Lucia,
Well, that's okay. I mean, I was going to say that I
Michael.
completely agree with that, and that's the point that the officer was making in the report.
So I just wanted to clarify that
Yeah.
that was the case.
Yeah, that's clearly the case. Thank you.
Do you want to come back, Lisa?
No, I just said I'm happy to respond on that. If Michael said what I would have said, is that it's not that we disagree at all that this type of activity would take place, you know, in the countryside. We felt that the application just didn't justify the change of use, and it would be a change of use because this is agricultural land, and you are looking to introduce equestrian use, and the application just isn't supported with enough information to state, you know, why it is justified. Also, with regards to the wording of the description for development, this was a validation matter, so the application hadn't actually been assessed in full at that point. This was validated by another officer before it came to me, as all applications are, and therefore we haven't had a chance to actually assess fully what was being applied for. And actually, when we kind of went through the application, we realised what was being applied for was somewhat different, you know, than on the surface, and it just didn't have the information to substantiate that. With regard to the grazing, you know, we have an issue that the grazing isn't provided within the red light boundary, and Michael can possibly confirm this, but we would struggle to tie this in with a condition, because we can't place condition on land outside of the red line boundary. We can only place conditions on what is within the development site.
I would just corroborate what my colleague has said. We can't apply a condition to be able to tie that land to this site. Again, the arguments made in the report that if it's not tied in within the red line, Sam, we don't have any control over it. It's up to the vagaries of the applicant as to what they would do with the land, and that would run counter to any planning permission that would be granted. The only way within which land outside the red line site, and if it's a blue line site owned by the ownership, if it's through a legal agreement, and we don't have a legal agreement as part of this application, that would be the only mechanism. So in supporting this application or passing this application effectively means it's just the red line site, and we have no control outside of that red line site, and the grazing of the animals as part of the welfare matters is intrinsic to this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Anybody else got anything to say? Before I say, Councillor White, I did call this application and I've got a couple of things here.
Yeah, I think the only other thing we could say is, could we defer it for a legal agreement to be drawn up? They've already said that they're happy to put the land within the holding. So is that a possibility to do that? Because I don't have any problem with the stables themselves.
Just before I say that, I think what's in the report is that it's not that the proposal per se is not supported, or the principle of the proposal, I would say, yeah? We've had applications like this before, and we've supported applications like this, but it's going through the proper channels. That has to be the proper legal channels. If it's not done that way, it can be open to challenge. Yeah, particularly if we're making similar decisions on other applications and they're not going through that process. So we do have to be quite clear on the process. In terms of your suggestion, Councillor White, it's within members' gift to defer the application. There potentially could be a discussion around that. I mean, I mean, it's not just, that's not just the only matter which we've raised, yeah? The other matters are in terms of the actual justification. Again, normally we'd seek robust information for that. That hasn't been provided in this particular case. It's not to say that the argument can't be made. It just hasn't been made in this particular application. So it's more than just us deferring this and then sign a legal agreement, say we agree to this as well. There has to be some more information. I don't doubt that this can't be provided, but it just hasn't been provided for this. And we need to be quite clear in terms of us adhering to our particular processes. So I couldn't just support it be deferred just for that and for us to come back with that, and again, for it to be supported. Thank you, Chairman.
If I might come back, I mean, certainly for me, the only issue that I can see that's been raised is the grazing, because from a horse welfare point of view, and a design point of view, and the logical of policy E4 with development in the countryside, I don't actually have a problem with it. So that, I don't know what the other members think, but that's my only thing. You know, might be a possibility, but even then, it doesn't have to be purely change of use to equestrian if it's still in part use for agriculture. Generally, agriculture and equestrian run side to side, and you'll have horses out with the cattle, and in fact, sheep are the best grazers to put horses out with sheep because they help eat some of the weeds down. So I don't even have a problem with that, but I'll leave it in the hands of the other members.
Do you want to come back, Mr.
Just briefly, I mean, I can see what you're saying, Councillor, but the planning is quite clear on that, in that it would involve a change of use, even if they're closely related. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Durham.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not personally familiar with the site, but I'm just looking at an aerial photograph, and it looks like the field that is being referred to hasn't been under arable agriculture. It doesn't look like it's been cultivated for quite a long time, because there's quite a lot of scrub trees and things showing on it. Certainly the field below that has been under agriculture. So I mean, it looks like a field that is ripe for grazing. It does, certainly there's been nothing carried out there. It's not been planted and harvested in. Clearly, there's no date on it, but it looks like a relatively modern photograph. But overall, I don't have a major issue with it.
Go on.
No, just again, just on that particular point, it's not the fact that we're, objecting to the fact of the land being used for that purpose. It's just that it's not been included within the red line site. Right. That's just the point that we're making.
Okay, right. Can I go first, Councillor? Sure. Yeah. Right, I've got, this is probably Mrs. Fleming has a bit more for this. She might have a rural payment, basic payment schemes. Now, they've dropped 45% in the last 3 years, correct? And 2027, there will be none for agriculture. Right, I've got that wrong then, but I was looked up and it was 2027. It's very poor land. We all know that. It's gravel all through there, sandy, high input. To farm the land, it lends itself to grass, and as Councillor Siddle said, 40 years ago there was grass there with a few fruit trees growing in it. So there has been grass there. Now, breeding horses, this might be for Mrs. White and Mrs. Fleming. If you've got a breeding mare on grass, you can still claim your rural payments for agriculture. Yes. So that must still be agricultural land if you've got a horse on it. You cannot feed the horses on the said agricultural land, but from what I've understood, you can't. They have to graze, but you couldn't put a bale of hay out there to feed them on breeding mares. So that would technically can still be agricultural land with horses on it. So I don't think the argument to have it changed from agricultural to domestic is right. I'll let you come back again, Mrs. White, Councillor White even.
If you want to go back into the semantics, we're in the higher level stewardship scheme. And we have one small field, 16 acres, which is purely that we use for grazing horses, and that still comes under the higher level stewardship. And we do feed them hay in the field. The only thing that does happen is if the weather's really bad, we have to bring them in because they will sort of palance if the field gets poached. So that's probably why they've left it separate, because you can graze horses 100% on agricultural land, and it's still
and claim your rural payments.
Absolutely,
Right.
it still stays as agricultural land, but you have to look after it. So that's why we would need the stables, is so that when the weather's bad, they come in, so they're not poaching the land.
Right. Can I, Mr. Johnson, can I go just to Councillor Fleming, then yourself, then obviously Councillor Morgan, because he's got an offer on the table. Right. Councillor Fleming, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at the officer's comments, their issue seems to be that they don't have enough information. So my question to Lisa is, did she return to the applicant and ask for the information that she needed? Has there been a sort of backwards and forwards? And I'd like to know whether she's sort of repeatedly asked for it and it just hasn't been provided. Thank you.
Lisa, thank you. Go on, Lisa, sorry. Yeah, Mrs. Greenwood.
Sorry. Okay. I think with any application, if the principle of development is considered to be unacceptable, and with this case, we didn't have the grazing land, there were lots of different things, lots of information we didn't have, we wouldn't request this from the applicant, no. So we didn't request this in this instance.
Okay, thank you. Does that clarify for you, Mrs. Fleming?
I just wanted.
Go on.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Johnson.
I just wanted to underline that officers are under no obligation to be going back to applicants.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman.
Right. Is that all, Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, I just want, again, just going back to that point, because I know there was a little discussion just now about, agricultural land, equestrian, use of horses, and if that requires planning permission. It's quite clear the change of use from agricultural to equestrian requires planning permission. That is a legal planning position. I'd just be a bit concerned the fact that, and I say this respectfully, if we're kind of inventing planning law in a committee chamber, because that isn't the case. This is a clear position. So any decision on that basis would actually legally be ultra vires. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Right, Councillor Morgan, I'll take you for the last one, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, it's obviously, I've had a long day and everything else, so maybe I'm getting something wrong, but I'm finding it difficult why we're getting hung up on this business of change of use. If, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm aware, study agricultural law, the grazing of horses is an agricultural activity. And there doesn't need to be a change of use of that. And the fact that necessarily all of the grazing isn't within the red line, I don't think is relevant. It was, as far as I understand, it was within the original site plan that was put down. And in case, I presume the only other change of use is where you're actually getting the actual stables, commercial stables, which are being built. Well, surely the sort of change of use aspect of that is implicit in the application itself for the erection of those stables. So I think we're sort of really going around in circles here, but I'm arguing the wrong point. I genuinely do.
All right, okay. Once more, Mrs.
I was going to say I'd like to make a proposal, if I can, that we approve this application, because I think we're getting bogged down in stuff that I don't think is necessary, and the building site has got the red line, and you can do multiple use on a field. You don't have to change of use.
Right. Councillor Siddle, is this your ward, the same as mine? I'll let you have the final word, please.
Yes, thank you. So I just want to back up what Mr. Johnson said. We're now setting a precedent that anybody with an agricultural field can go and get change of use for it. That's the precedent that this committee is now setting. And this committee has set those precedents before. And, well, there you go.
Right. Go on, Mr. Johnson. Once more, then we've got an offer on the table.
Yeah,
I'll take
I mean,
the vote. Thank you.
I'm very concerned about this because I think any Google on this matter will bring up all the various legal positions on this in terms of the particular change of use. It's not even a matter normally for legal debate in that sense, and there is an undesirable precedent that would be set on that basis. Thank you, Chairman.
Right, thank you. Right, we've. I think the next bit. Bear with me, but I think the next bit is I've got an offer on the table. We take a vote on it, Mr. Johnson, which is duly seconded. Offer on Councillor Morgan, seconded by Councillor White. Yeah, you. Sorry, and if on them recommendations, could I have a show of hands, please, in favour of Councillor White's proposal? And that's 3, and against Councillor White 2. So that is duly carried. And Bernard, have you got the reasons
Well,
on the policy? What?
Yes, Councillor White proposed that the application be approved contrary to the officer's recommendation,
Patient.
but given that it was in line with policy E4 and would also encourage economic growth in the area. Can we just make it clear, if the planning officers are happy for that to go ahead, that the conditions for approval are delegated to the planning officers in consultation with the chairman?
Yes, I'm happy to do that. Yes,
Yep.
and speak to ward members, if, both the ward members, if there's any problems.
Thank you, Chairman.
Right, thank you very much. Right, next one is Lawns Farm, 29 Plains Road, Great Totham, Essex. The agenda can be found on item 6, found on pages 23 to 32, and if Nicola Ward, is it Miss or Mrs. Nicola?
It's Lisa Greenwood.
Lisa Greenwood, sorry, apologies, sorry Lisa, could you please present the report?
Of course. The application site is located on the southern side of Plains Road and lies within the rural area outside of any defined settlement boundary. The site is open, comprising of maintained agricultural grassland. The site is neighboured by agricultural fields and the character is rural. The site hosts a small wooden outbuilding adjacent to 29 Plains Road. The outbuilding was constructed roughly between April 2020 or March 2022. Planning permission is sought for the construction of a stable block, tack room and a feed and machine store. The proposed building is of an L shape and would have a maximum height of 6.5 metres with an eaves height of 3.4, an overall depth of 12.3 metres and a width of 27.9 metres. The floor plan shows that there will be 4 stables and a separate tack room plus a large feed and machinery store. The external materials will consist of a facing brick plinth, black stained timber weatherboarding to the walls, plain clay roof tiles and timber windows and doors. Now, section 5 of the officer's report refers to the principle of development. The proposed use of the stables is unclear. There has been no information submitted by way of a planning statement or design and access statement to provide information with regards to the domestic or ancillary link to Lawns Farm. The host dwelling is not included within the red line boundary of the site, and no information has been provided as to whether this is an equestrian or a domestic hobby use. There has also been no information provided as to where the grazing can be achieved. Whilst it's acknowledged that the site is within the countryside and it's considered reasonable to support the provision of such structures, which are outside of the curtilage of the farm, it's not considered that the use of the building would be ancillary to the host. If the stables are to be considered as commercial, no information has been submitted to justify the need for the stables and tack room in this location, nor how the business would operate. There is also nothing to suggest that the stables could be a tourist facility. The principle of development has therefore found to be unacceptable. Paragraph 5.2 of the report refers to the design and the impact on the character of the area. The building would be highly visible from the surrounding countryside by virtue of the siting and scale and size, and is considered to have a detrimental impact on the character and appearance of the rural area. As can be seen at section 5.4.4, an objection has been received from the Highway Authority. The proposal is considered to have a substandard visibility display, and the lack of suitable visibility from the access for both emergent and approaching vehicles would result in an unacceptable degree of hazard to all road users to the detriment of general highway safety. This proposal, the Highway Authority considered, would set a precedent for future development. The proposal has been found to be contrary to policies S1, S8, E4, E5, T2 and D1 of the local plan and the guidance in the framework, and it is recommended that this is refused.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Much appreciated. Right, we have a public participant for this planning application in line with the public participation scheme. I would now like to invite Mr. Tony Cousins, the agent, to read out the submission. You know the rules here, don't you, Mr. Cousins, I should think?
Certainly, Chairman.
2 minutes from when you start your speech.
Thank you, Chairman.
Hang on a minute, Mr. Cousins. Burn up, we've got no timer.
Just checking that now, Chairman.
No, that's fine, thank you.
Okay,
Right,
thank you.
hang on a minute.
The requirement for a design and access statement was removed some time ago, Chairman, so the applicant or the agent shouldn't be penalised for that. This application for 4 stables, a feed room and tack store, or tack room and feed store, is wholly sited on Long's Farm. It's directly opposite Long's farmhouse. It can clearly and plainly be seen it's intrinsically linked to Long's Farm. There is no intention of any commercial use. This is for the personal use of the applicant and for the future diversity of Long's Farm as a holding. The stables have been designed to the minimum standards set out by the British Horse Society, so that sets the requirement for the bulk and the scale of the development. The tack store and the feed store and the machinery store is designed around a functional need for those particular elements. The design is based on rural vernacular proportions. It incorporates quality vernacular materials, and it's hoped that that design would have been acceptable as a rather attractive rural building. Regarding the second reason for refusal and the Highways Authority, we have submitted revised drawings which the Highways Authority have accepted could provide visibility one way. So if the committee aren't minded to approve the application tonight, could I respectively ask, Chairman, that you restrict your reason for refusal to the Highways issue, which will enable us to get a speed traffic survey completed, and we'll resubmit with that in the future. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cousins. Right, who would like to go first? Miss White?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not going to repeat everything I repeated before, but for me, this is pretty much, it's an even smaller application than the last one. It's only 4 stables. It meets all the compliances it needs to. But actually, I do think, listening to the agent, that he's made a really good point, and I would fight for this to be approved. I have no problem with design, I have no problem with policy E4, I have no problem with anything else, exactly the same as the previous application. But we cannot go against highways. That for me is the one sort of line in the sand, really. So I would propose that we approve this application in line with the reasons for approval with the previous application, waiting on, and then we put that the only reason for refusal down as the highway issues. Obviously, if it's the highway issues, we can't argue with that, like we didn't last month with the house that was in Clark's. We have to respect highways. So my proposal is that we refuse the application, but only on the highways issue, because I think otherwise it's policy compliant. Thank you.
Councillor Durham, would you like to come back?
Well, I concur with Councillor White. The only slight issue with Essex County Highways at the moment is that they're unable to conduct any speed surveys until April. So whether that's going to fit in with the applicant or not, I don't know. It's just it's a comment that the applicant needs to be aware of, that there is no budget for speed surveys.
We're 4-month waiting, you're saying, 3.5 months. Right, Councillor Siddle, that's your ward, same as mine.
Yeah. So in terms of this particular application, It's not just 4 stables. If we could look at the proposed floor plan on the presentation.
Lisa, could we have the proposed floor plan,
Okay,
please?
so it's not just 4 stables, it's also a massive room that we're not quite sure what it's going to be used for. So in terms of that, it's not intrinsically linked to the farm. It's across the road. So there's not an intrinsic link between the farmhouse and this particular stable block in terms of these things. I think the design is good, but it's too big. Yeah, for this particular site and for this particular location and for that field, it is far too big. So I'm using my local knowledge in terms of this, and it is much, much too big for that particular site. And therefore we can't just refuse it on the transport side, the highway side of things. We have to refuse it on the scale of this. It's not the design of it, it's the scale of this property and this development. And that's the key issue. Yeah, it would have a big impact on the side of the road where there's only one house and a small stables further up the road. So this would have a really big change in terms of the character and the design and the impact on that rural location. So we've got to look at it, in terms of that aspect as well. So I would say that we need to refuse it in terms of its scale as well.
Is that a proposal you're putting?
It is the proposal I'm putting forward, but it's too big.
No, second.
No, I'm not seconding it.
No.
That's not the question.
Your second, Councillor Siddles. Right. Councillor White, you asked to come back.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to comment on the design. I mean, as you know, I keep horses. I'm rather large, so all my horses are rather large. And my stables at home, I'm not sure what the exact meterage is. The minimum legal requirement for a stable in the UK, and we're talking for little ponies here, is 12 feet by 12 feet. My horses are all around about 17 to 18 hands, which is probably about, their way taller than me, so I'd say probably about 6'2", 6'4" in height. They're bigger than that in length. I don't know what the length is. And my stables at home are 14 feet by 18 feet. And we have just got planning permission, or we got planning permission a couple of years ago for a barn, and the stables inside that are going to be exactly that size. Also, with the machinery store, a horse in the winter will eat a minimum of 1 bale of hay a day. That means each horse will have to have 7 bales of hay a week. If you times that by 4, that's quite a lot of bales of hay. I'm not going to do the maths tonight because I'm bound to be wrong. So you need that in the machinery store. And if anybody's kept horses, I can tell you the amount of stuff they have to have is unreal. The other thing is horse trailers tend to be very popular for theft. And I would imagine looking at that barn, you'll have hay and straw in it, and then you'll have the horse trailer parked in front so it doesn't get stolen. I mean, theft of horse trailers, no matter how well they're tracked. I mean, for me, I don't understand why we're saying it's a really big building. It looks like a really functional building, and I'd love to keep my horses in there. So I have no problem with the size. I mean, I've already made a motion which was seconded, and we'll have to see what happens with that and see what members say. But I've got no problem with design whatsoever.
Do you want to come back, Councillor Johnson, or do you want me to go to Mr. Siddle? Councillor Siddle first. Councillor Siddle. Sorry, bear with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
In terms of what Councillor White has just said, she's just given every single reason why we should refuse this. Because in terms of the plot, I'm sure Councillor White's got lots of land. This isn't a lot of land, it's a small field. And all those things, in terms of all those things that are needed, are unnecessary on this site. Yeah, that's the crucial thing. It's too big for this particular location. And if you look at the plan, it is not on the same site as the farm. It is opposite. So it's not intrinsically linked either. So again, that's the reason why we've got to refuse something on this scale.
Oh, thank you. Councillor Johnson, do you want to come back before? Mr. Johnson, apologies.
I've done it again.
Apologies. Mr. Johnson.
I was going to say, you might actually get me moving to Malden now. But actually I wanted to concur really with the points made by Councillor Siddle, the functional link to the dwelling. If I can ask Ms. Greenwood just to bring up the plan, just showing the relationship between the site and the dwelling house. Yeah, if we can have the one, yeah, that's it, yeah. Again, it's similar to some of the issues that were raised with the previous scheme. The red line is just around this site, which is across the road, and it is separated. The blue line only identifies that, you know, the house is in the ownership. In planning terms, it would be a separate planning unit which is being created here. That in itself can cause issues. There's no functional link. We can't condition that it would be tied in. There's nothing we can do in that particular sense. So again, that raises concern in terms of how that land can be used in the future, separate from the dwelling house, particularly for the purpose in which it's actually proposed. So significant concerns are raised there. Again, the justification arguments have not been provided, and in terms of the design, there's two parts to this building. I mean, we have, and hopefully Mrs. Greenwood can confer here in terms of the height of the sort of shorter perpendicular bit, the larger bit. If I recall, I think it was 7.5 meters, if I seem to recall. Am I correct?
I think I was actually raising my hand to mention the height of the building, and I think that was initially when Nicola looked at the application. It's very different to other applications that we've seen for stables. In this, it's almost double height, and there are high windows. I think the height's 6.5 meters.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more used to seeing stables similar to the height of the longitudinal section. I could more appreciate an argument in terms of its acceptability, more appreciate, not saying I accept, but more appreciate an argument if we were just dealing with that element of it, which is more commensurate to what we're used to. That perpendicular larger bit is out of scale. And I think the photo showed the nature of the area, the openness of the area. Councillor Siddle pointed to one other dwelling. I imagine there probably would have been one other, but somewhere not in this particular vicinity and not even within the immediate vistas of this site. So these are the reasons for our particular concerns with this application. Similar but also separate issues to the previous application that was raised. Thank you, Chairman.
Hello, Mr. Johnson. Right, well, I'll go on, Councillor Morgan.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Obviously, I take Councillor Siddle's point, and I also understand what the officers are saying. And I noted in the report it states that this could cause substantial harm to the vicinity. I have to say these are ultimately subjective judgments, and I'm very persuaded by Councillor White's point that this is a functional building designed specifically for its purpose, and therefore I see no reason why it shouldn't be in there. But having said that, as I have already seconded Councillor White's motion, I do believe that the highways issue does have to be resolved. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Has anybody else have anything to say? Right, well, I've got two offers on the table. I've got Councillor White's and Councillor Siddle's. I'll go with Councillor White's first and then Councillor Siddle's, is that? If your falls, we'll go to Councillor Siddle's.
Well, they're both reasons
for refusal, yes. We've both got seconders. So do Councillor White's and then Councillor Siddle's. Yep. Right, those in favour for Councillor White's to put it for a highway report?
Sorry, can we just clarify, if we vote for Councillor White's, does that mean that my motion is not put forward? Yes.
No, we have to do Councillor Siddle's as well, do we? No?
Well, effectively that would be the case, yeah. If Bernard can provide some clarification on that.
Bernard?
If Councillor White's proposal falls, we then move to Councillor Siddle's proposal.
Happy with that, Councillor?
But if it succeeds.
That was the order that they were put forward.
That's correct, yes.
But Bernard, if it succeeds.
Then it succeeds.
If it succeeds, it succeeds.
Right, okay,
it's approved.
just for clarity. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, except can we just also clarify, it's up for refusal in the first instance.
Yes.
And we're saying that what we want to do, if Councillor White wishes, her proposal is saying that it's refused on the basis of the highways issue alone.
Correct, Bernard.
And seconded by Councillor
Councillor.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councillor White.
If you can take the vote then, please,
Right.
thank you.
Those in favour of Councillor White's motion, please raise your hand. Right, that's 3. Those against? 2. So that's Councillor White's proposal passed. Happy with that? Is that right? That's all, done it all, yes, right, thank you very much, sir. Right, let's crack on with the next one. Right, next one. Planning application 22/000931 Cherry Blossom Lane, Cold Norton. We move to agenda 7, found on pages 33 to 48. And Lisa Greenwood, could you please present the report?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
The application site is located on the eastern side of Cherry Blossom Lane, just outside of the defined settlement boundary of Cold Norton, which runs along the southern edge of the site. The application currently comprises of grassland, and immediately adjacent to the south of the site is number 7 Cherry Blossom Lane, a detached bungalow. To the north of the site is garden land known as Poplars. Planning permission is sought to construct a detached bungalow with associated off-street parking and amenity space. The dwelling would be located along the northern edge of the site, and it would have a similar orientation to the bungalow to the south. It will measure 17.6 metres in depth, 8.5 metres in width and 5.1 metres to the ridge. Paragraph 3.1.5 sets out the background to the application which is pertinent. This application follows a previous application for a similar proposal that was approved in 2017 for the construction of a detached bungalow. And this followed a previous appeal which was initially refused but then allowed an appeal in 2014. The current application seeks to amend the design of the bungalow very slightly. It would be modestly larger in size and would have an alternative roof design. The layout would be similar to what has already been approved. It must be noted that the previous application was approved over 3 years ago, and as the development has not been commenced, the permission now expired. The planning history for the site is therefore a material consideration. Whilst the site is outside of the settlement boundary for Cold Norton, and thus in principle the development is contrary to the policies in the development plan, which seek to direct new development to established settlements, the development sits above the settlement boundary, and based on the previous inspector's comments, the principle has been found to be acceptable. Acceptable in terms of design and the impact on the area. There have been no technical or neighbour objections received, and it's therefore recommended that planning permission is granted.
Right, thank you very much, Lisa. There are no public participants in this application, so seconded. All right, Councillor White, please first before we go there.
Thank you, Mr. I mean, I love these little developments that are on the edge of boundaries and in villages. I've got no problem. I do, however, there's nothing on highways. The parish council had just spent £100,000 tarmacking the road, which, when it was previously proposed, was a rough track. And I've gone through everything, and I'm a bit disappointed that Mr. Penny didn't try and work with the parish council beforehand. I'm a bit disappointed there's nothing in the paperwork about any harm that could be done to the road, this brand new road, which was only finished literally a few weeks ago. Or it might be a couple of months ago now. And I just wondered if there was any way we could defer it to get some additions and assurances made to what's going to happen with this new road, and potentially is there any way of doing a section 106 so that they add an area on to this made up road, only because all the lorries going over the lip of this brand new road, construction lorries, I'm worried that it's going to damage it. So I'm sort of saying, yep, I'm happy with it, I've not got a problem with it, but I'm concerned we don't have enough information on looking after this road. I know it's a private road, but it is still pertinent for me. So that was my view on it.
Councillor Fleming, and then Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted Michael and Lisa's comments on that, the issue of the new road surface, whether that it's I know it's a private road. Could have an informative be put on there?
Mr. Johnson. Ms Greenwood?
And, well, did Lisa want to say something?
I don't. Lisa, would you like to
Did you have
comment
something?
first?
I think I can only refer to the highways comments,
Yeah.
which I just pulled up here, because it is a private road and there are no proposed alterations to the existing access, that there is no objection, a technical objection from them.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to add, in planning terms, I mean, it's outside of the application site. Those matters, I do appreciate that. I've read the comments.
It's not object to the development itself.
Yeah, but there's nothing we can actually do about it. Nothing that would legally, fall within our planning remit.
Fair enough.
Thank you, Mr Johnson. Councillor Morgan.
Just to say that if there's a private road, there's usually a scheme or some sort of system up and running for its repair and maintenance. That's part of the reason they do it.
That's what they wanted incorporated into the application, and that's all they would defer it until that was in, that something was incorporated.
Councillor Fleming, would you like to come back again, please?
Thank you, Chair. Now that we've squared away that one,
Yes.
I just wanted to ask about EV charging points. I just had a look at the conditions. I didn't see anything there. So it's standard. Okay. I saw that you'd put in bike, something for bikes. And what about rainwater collection? Have you got anything covering that? I'm thinking water butts.
It's not the sort of thing we would normally
Ask for.
as a condition. I don't think it would meet the test.
Okay. Well, my personal view is that it should be on free.
No, I appreciate it, but
Yeah,
it wouldn't
should
be
be.
a planning test, and I think
Now that new developments have EV chargers.
no, water butts. Water butts.
Okay, so just to clarify, the EV charging point is there, because I didn't see it listed in the conditions.
We can add that as a condition.
Yeah, because it's not actually in the list of conditions.
Yeah, no,
So you can add that?
Yes, yeah.
Right, okay. Brilliant, thank you.
Right, I had a offer on the table from Mr White, wasn't second. So, hands, can we all have a show of hands? Agree the recommendation? Right, that's unanimous.
That's subject to the additional condition.
Subject to the additional, everybody. Right, any other business? There are none. Closure of the meeting. Members, thank you for your contribution this evening. I now draw the meeting to close at 8:27. As this meeting is now closed, member advised not to enter any further discussion and please leave the chamber promptly. Thank you very much, and sorry if I referred